Thank you so much. Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for kicking off December Community Conversations with us today. I'm Irene Chancelong, Senior Grant Specialist at Maddie's Fund. Co-hosting with me today is the one and only Lawrence Minnis, Director of Workforce Development at Humane Rescue Alliance. How are you doing today, Lawrence?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well, thank you. Glad to see you. And so I mentioned earlier, we have a thought-provoking program ahead. So before we do that, we'll start with some announcements. First up, Amber Eby, are you ready to announce some grant winners?
I am. I am super excited to announce some grant winners. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead or good afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. Let me go ahead and share my screen. All right. And does everyone see the November prize winners? Perfect. So first up, we have our weekly community conversations, which is one winner of $5,000. And that goes to Steve Marrero from Liberty County Animal Services in Hinesville, Georgia. So big round of applause for Steve. Unfortunately, he cannot join us today, but he does send his thanks, and they're looking forward to using these funds to help keep pets and people together through their pet support system. All right, so we'll go ahead and announce the second winner, and that is for our Maddie's Pet Forum, one winner of $3,000. And today we have Miriam Martinez from Mujeres Latinas, South Carolina, which is in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. And I do believe that Miriam is on the call today. No, maybe not.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Did you hear me?
Oh, there you are. I see you now. Nice to see you. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because it is my first grant that we got from Mujeres Latinas. And for us, it's so important because we're working with the Hispanic community here. And this means a lot for us. Thank you so much.
Totally our pleasure. Can you tell us a little bit about what your organization does?
Yes, we have here an organization to protect the environment and the wildlife. We start 2 years ago, and we start with another community they call Keeper of the Wild, and we start with squirrels, with raccoons, with possums, then with dogs, and finally because a lot of people asking about how they can take care of the animals outside, the cats, the fur cats. So we start up looking for information. If we found you guys, and we start, I was starting to asking a lot program. They help us a lot. Also, last Saturday, we took the TRR training. It was great. So we starting the next year a program called TRR for the Hispanic community. And we have a lot of volunteers that they want to enjoy with us. So for us, it means, and we expecting a lot from this program and helping the cats here.
That is amazing. And I know when folks are doing TNR, there is lots of concern for the wildlife. So it's great to have those two, kind of focuses coming together. Well, congratulations again. Thank you so much for, yes, we're excited for you. Thank you for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, but we'll do one more big round of applause for both of our winners today. And Kelly Clarity is going to drop the links in the chat so you can all have a chance to win in the future too. Thanks so much, everyone.
Gracias.
Oh, great. Thank you. Congratulations again to our winners. Thank you, Amber, for announcing. I think that warmed all of our hearts. So now I'd like to open the floor up to national updates. Folks, if you could use your icon to raise your hand, we'll be able to call on folks for the next few minutes. I am not seeing any. Oh, Amber Frywell, there you go with your real your hand. Yeah,
real hand, my real hand and my real cat. Hi, everybody. Wanted to make a quick announcement that Camp Maddie Foster Edition Half Day Symposium virtually is happening on December 7th. The focus is dog foster programming. Registration is free and open. I've dropped the link in the chat. Thanks so much.
Amber. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer from the Humane Society of the United States, and just dropping a note here to remind us of Animal Care Expo early advance registration happening now. Expo will be in San Antonio, Texas this year from May 15th through 18th, and I'll be dropping the registration link in the chat as well as a link to apply for some scholarships. So we hope to see you there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Anyone wants to unmute and share? Please feel free to with your national update. All right, then. Thank you all. Lawrence, over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Irene, and thank you, everyone, for your announcements. And please, if you have any additional announcements, feel free to put those into the chat. For this moment, it is my tremendous privilege to introduce our highly esteemed guest and a figure within animal welfare. She is someone whose knowledge, compassion and insight is highly sought after, highly valued across the nation, actually worldwide. And our guest brings a ton of experience with shelter veterinary medicine and a great knowledge network that is useful to different organizations through JVR's shelter strategies, as well as taking time to guide human growth, human balance, and the expression of how we are internally, not just focus on animals, but how we are personally. And that's through her nonprofit, Journey You Own. So please give an enthusiastic show of love and appreciation in the chat for our wonderful, fantastic guest, Dr. Jyothi Robertson.
Hi, Lawrence. That was fantastic. That felt very dramatic, that sort of introduction, but I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. It is very exciting to be here today, to be able to speak with all of you. So let me just tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today.
You're welcome.
And my watch says you're welcome, in case you heard that. So what we're doing today is I'm going to take us through a few slides. We're really talking about the future and upcoming new year, how to set reflections, resolutions, intentions. And it's not a presentation that has a lot of science and data. It has, some pretty pictures and a few sentences here and there, but I'm a visual learner. And so for me, it's really helpful to see pictures and images. I'm not an auditory learner. So for some of you might also be like me, where it's nice to actually see some photos, and I'll take you along through a story and kind of show you a little bit about how I think about the ending of a season, the ending of a year, the beginning of a new season, sort of ways to think about the new year. And then for those of us who like to do things that are more engaging, my team created a handout that not right now, but eventually we'll be putting into the chat. And it's a Word document that I encourage you to all download right now, like while we're in this session, and take a look at it if you can, or later on, and you can modify it for yourselves, and has some of the same questions that I'm going to take us through today. And then I plan to leave about 10 to 15 minutes at the end. Let's see, we didn't have many morning announcements, so we should have plenty of time. Some time at the end where I'll guide us through a reflection process, like a shorter reflection. And that'll be a lot more experiential than listening to me talking at slides. So let me go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen and have this thumbs up or something if you can see my screen all right. Okay. And then I will not be able to see your images or the chat. So if there's anything that anyone has a question about that I need to address right away, just let me know and come off mute. Okay. So as Lawrence mentioned, I'm a veterinarian and I've been working in consulting for a while, but I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And I like telling stories, by the way. So automatically, you're going to hear a few stories right now. I loved snow globes. And when I was a kid, I used to collect snow globes. And this particular one looks a lot like the view from my house in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I had 3 spruce trees that were right outside the window, and they'd collect with all this snow that would just be right on top of it. And December was a season that I think I loved the most, especially coming into the holidays. Now, it might have been because it meant that I didn't need to go to school and that we had a couple of weeks off. But I also really liked it because I love to journal. And every December, my father bought me a new journal. And this was in anticipation of the new year. So December 31st, regardless of wherever I was, if we were traveling anywhere, I would always write down my New Year's resolutions. A long list of things of what I had or what I was wishing to do and accomplish in the following upcoming year. And what always happened when I wrote these resolutions was I'd inevitably stop whatever it was I wrote down that I was going to do by about March. And I actually pulled out a couple of my journals to prepare for this talk. And one of them, I was looking at, it started from the age of 5 all the way to 18 in Milwaukee. And one of them just said that I wanted to exercise more, which is, a really common resolution. And I listed out all the different types of push-ups that I was going to do every single day. And by February, and this whole process where I was going to write down every single day about the different types of push-ups that I was doing. And, it took less than 3 weeks and I had stopped doing push-ups. And I'm sure that some of you can relate to this idea of this concept of resolution as being maybe a little challenging. So I went from Milwaukee, from this lovely snowy landscape, to moving to California. And so my globe changed. It became the sunny hills of California, the oceanscape. We do have mountains, but I can choose to go to snow. Around here, I live in the hills. And the habit of creating resolutions, though, came with me. It came along with me from Wisconsin to California, and yet it shifted over time. What I came to recognize is that in order to get some clarity in my reflection, that I needed to think about it in a new way. That when I was coming at this angle of resolutions, I was often coming at it from a scarcity mindset. So if I wrote down that I wanted to eat better or eat a certain type of diet, it's because I hadn't done that in the past. Or if I was wanting to exercise more, it's because I was choosing to recognize that I hadn't exercised yet. And so today in this process, I'm going to invite all of us to try on this practice of reflection where we see ourselves in the entirety. I really like this hand, and the reason why I made this hand come up is because I'm imagining myself turning this globe and actually visualizing all aspects of this past year in a new way. The reflection of the seasons that we've just experienced from, the winter of 2023, where January started, into spring, summer, and now fall, coming in again to winter, or January all through December, is a way of viewing our lives in a whole, in a sense of wholeness. And so fall happens to be one of my favorite seasons going into winter, because it's a time where after the harvest, we can settle into our homes where, depending on where you live, right now it's not that cold where I am in California, but in Wisconsin it was. And as a family, we'd get together and we'd snuggle around the fire and we'd think about our year. And so today I invite you to view future through this lens of the past, right? Set your resolutions in a way that we view it by viewing how we've showed up this past year. And in order to do this, I view this as an honoring of endings. And that when we honor endings, it creates a space for new beginnings to happen. And it's in that, what I'm going to call an art of remembering and forgetting well, that we can honor what we've all experienced this past year. So what does that mean? Well, when I think of remembering well, that is this reflection of acknowledgement, of witnessing all that we've experienced throughout the year and presencing it, still placing it, front and center in a way that we give it the sort of that honoring, that acknowledgement that will allow us to release its hold. And then in that process, there's a letting go. There's a forgetting. There's a conscious release of items that are lingering in our minds. It's again that form of honoring change. I really like this particular quote, that forgetting well creates the space to remember well. Right? So when we take the time to consciously release our hold on items, that creates space for us to then reflect and remember really well. And then we can resolve those items that are perhaps disappointments, frustrations, or maybe annoyances, those things in our mind that we keep going back to and maybe wish we had done differently, or that are just remaining there, holding on to those. So I'm going to frame those items in this construct. This is just the way that I think about it. There's many ways to think about lingering items. I view them in the physical space, the energetic, and then the mental, emotional. Again, I drew this out as a Venn diagram because really they all interconnect, right? There's truly isn't a distinct or discrete separation of these. When I think about physical space, let me just tell you about how it shows up for me. This past year, just a couple of months ago, I broke my sink. So the hot water spigot on my sink is broken. So only cold water will turn on, which I have to say is slightly annoying. So I went ahead and bought a new faucet, and I have this new faucet now. The problem is I haven't been able to get a plumber to come in and actually fix the faucet. And so I finally set this appointment. The appointment's for March 10th. So it's way off in the future. But in my mind, I can let go of my concern about not having this faucet fixed yet, because I know that it's in existence and it's going to be happening. So that's an example of a broken item in my life that was really taking up my physical space and my physical energy. But then your physical space is everything around you. It can be, your desk, your home. It can also be your community. It can be your country. It can be the world itself. So how you view it can be very general. It can mean not having the right tool to complete a task. If you're being asked to fix something or do something at work that involves, like I was thinking about a kennel that we had a broken, what do you call those, latches? The broken latch right at the front of the kennel. And we needed the little slider for it. And I wasn't able to complete my task of actually using that kennel because I didn't have that. So noticing how physical items occupy your space, and creating maybe a list or thinking about that. Then there's mental and emotional lingering items. For me, this is the email that I've been meaning to send, but I haven't sent it yet. It might still be sitting in my drafts, and I just haven't found the right time to do it. Or it could be a conversation that you might have had during Thanksgiving with somebody that I'm thinking about this because, again, during Thanksgiving, a lot of family members come together. And in our case, sometimes family members that we don't normally see. And there can be some miscommunications that happen and some feelings that are hurt there. And so I know that there's a conversation that needs to be had that's still residing in my mind that could use some completeness around that. And similarly, energetic space is another area. And for me, I put appointments and meetings here because I have been sitting on getting an appointment scheduled for visiting the doctor in Rochester, Minnesota. And I don't live anywhere near Minnesota, but I know I have to go there. And a lot of my energy is wrapped around that and the concern around that appointment. And so I know that it's lingering in the back of my mind. So you may also have similar things that take up time. And these items you can become complete with in a new way. They don't actually have to be done to be complete. We can place them into existence in such a way, like my faucet, where I know that March is coming right around the corner and it will be complete. So now I'm not stuck on it. Right? So we can get those thoughts out of our mind and say, you know what, I might not be able to have this conversation with this person, but I'm all right with that. It's okay that I have come to terms with what that's looked like. Or in the case of my email, I might actually put a schedule send on it so I know it's getting out there. And so for the first of our thoughts, what I invite you to do is consider scanning your year. You might do this as months, as days, as seasons, but consider scanning the entire year and notice if you feel some resistance to doing that. You know, perhaps you might not want to do it chronologically. Maybe you'll want to do it as moments. And there will be those moments that I'll invite you to ask the following questions. The first being, what can I let go of? And what is there that I can let go of? What can I put into existence reliably so I can mentally let go of the concern? Because it's concerns, however we define that word, concerns, that take up space. And then how can I feel complete even without the actual thing being completed? And here, again, I mentioned this handout. My team created this handout. It's a Word doc. And this would be a great time if Charlotte's able to drop it into the chat, or Irene, whoever's has that Word document. If you can drop it into the chat, and it will also be in the Maddie's Pet Forum for those of you who want to pull it from there. And it has the same questions there and a little space that you can write answers as you think about completing your year. Okay, so that's the idea of reflection. But then we think about how we acknowledge what we've experienced. So again, as just a small story, in one of the shelters that I worked with, we were very excited because we were able to complete 100 adoptions over a weekend for a big push that we had made. And this is a photo of a kitten that looks like that 100th adoption. It was a small little Callie kitten. And there was a little girl that was almost the age of my daughter at the time who adopted that last kitten. And we were very celebratory about the 100 adoptions that we did. And it felt like a big success and a win. And it really was. I mean, it is. It's not something that I want to diminish. And so we were celebrating that. And one of the other managers came up to me and she asked me, what is it that I want to be acknowledged for? And I said, well, of course, these 100 adoptions were fantastic. And then I thought about it some more, and underlying those 100 adoptions were the 150 surgeries that our vet team had to do in order to get all these animals ready for adoption. So then my mind went to that, and I was thinking, wow, it was probably part of the surgeries. And I do want to be acknowledged for how our team came together to get prepared for those 100 adoptions. And then I thought about it even further. And while the 100 adoptions and the 150 surgeries were fantastic, what really led and what I really wanted to be acknowledged for was that for the first time, I bridged over, and I'd been butting heads with the foster team. And so the foster manager and myself sat down and we spent time really talking about how we would bring animals back from foster into surgery in order to be prepared for this adoption run. And so what I really wanted to be acknowledged for is that collaborative spirit. This underlying win was this communication and how we bridged and really solved some of these concerns that both of us had about getting the animals back into our medical clinic and being able to put them up for adoption. And so there's layers of wins. And I'm, for those of you who know me, I might be like one of the queens of statistics and metrics. I love talking data, and numbers are fantastic. Numbers are great when it comes to goals, but there's something that underlies those numbers often. And that's where it's important for us. I want to think about, like, what is it that you really want to be acknowledged for? And so once again, here's another contemplation for you to do. And here, I invite you to actually put this in the chat. Ask yourself, what am I wanting to be acknowledged for this past year? And as a group, we often ask, what are our wins for the week, I think, or wins for the month, and go ahead and place this in the chat. And it might be the same as your win. It might be different. And so again, I do invite you to place that in there while listening. So the remembering of our journey is very important. There's low points and high points, right? And if we dismiss those challenging times, we're discounting and diminishing our effort. Right? We're forgetting about the growth that we went through to go through all these seasons. And it's when we see not only those wins or successes, but when we also see how we showed up in challenge, how we showed up when there was a concern, that then we can open up space for abundance. And abundance shows up for us often as gratitude. We just came out of a celebration of gratitude, of noticing all that appears in our lives. And this can be really challenging to do when we might be coming from a place of sadness or sorrow, or maybe fear or anger. And all of those are worthy of acknowledgement. And even through those, we can still find abundance. And so it's reflection of our feelings in both, again, those areas of wins and those areas of disappointments. It's when we view those from all different angles that the abundance appears. And so life can appear blurry, and especially the future. Now we're moving from the past and thinking about the future. And here I'm thinking again about myself as a child, creating those resolutions. And it's blurry. It's very blurry to think about what is actually going to happen. And yet some clarity can happen when we set intentions. Our team at JVR sets intentions every Monday. And the way that it looks is how we want to show up. We state, like, how do we want to show up for ourselves and others? And these are some of the intentions that sometimes we use. I might say that, you know what, I want to be open and curious. Okay, well, what that means is that I need to recognize what it looks like when I'm not open and curious. I might choose an intention like open curiosity when I know that I'm going into a week where I'm going into maybe negotiations about a contract, or I am going to be working with a team that I don't really know and doing some observations of their shelter. So my intention of open curiosity means that every time I feel myself interrupting somebody, that I pause and reflect back on what it looks like to be open and curious. Because I know that when I'm not open and curious, I'm going to start interrupting, or my hands might start clenching, or I might feel a tightness in my throat. So it's a way of appearing and noticing how you're showing up. And this is another activity that I invite all of you to do in the next few weeks. Notice how you want to show up for others and yourself in this upcoming year. We might not know what we want to resolve right away, but we might have a feeling of who we want to be, how we want to be presenting ourselves. So again, these questions are in that handout. And we can talk about setting intentions as the future and reflections as the past, but really all of that happens in the present moment. And so embracing the present and becoming really attuned to how we're feeling in this moment is part of this activity and part of the reflection that I invite you to do in this month of December. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that and actually take us through a reflection as a group. When I encourage people to reflect, I often encourage them to do this in a quiet space where they can either jot things down in a journal. If you choose to do that in nature, that's a beautiful way to do that. And for some people, contemplation and really thinking about their future and their past happens while they're exercising. So maybe while they're biking or jogging. So you can take many different forms. A part of the contemplation and embracing the present is becoming centered in how our body feels in any moment. And so that brings me to asking these 3 questions with all of us right now. And there are things that can show up for people while they're doing reflections. And so this is my first caveat that I just want to put sort of as a disclaimer, that if there are events that are traumatic or very upsetting, this sort of contemplation is not a substitute for professional guidance. And sometimes I find that it can be really helpful to do reflections with a friend where both of you are sitting together and you're asking each other these questions. One thing, if you are doing it by yourself and you're doing any sitting practice by yourself, and if you find yourself sort of in your head in such a way that you feel a little bit like you're spiraling or upset, you can always open your eyes and come out of it if you can, and choose not to do this practice in this way. We use a lot of somatic techniques in some of the work that we do for our actual meditations, which I don't have the time to take us through today, but I encourage you to explore those as well. So for right now, let me just see if all of you, now I'm going to try to move my screen for a minute so I can at least see if I see that Lawrence is here. So I think this is maybe a good time for me to take us through an actual practice. And you can keep your videos off. So everybody else is welcome to keep their videos off if you'd like, or your videos on. And what I invite you to do if you're seated is to sit in such a way that your feet are planted firmly on the ground. And I am going to take us through a reflection where there'll be moments of silence, where I'll ask you to center first in the breath and the body, and then I'll ask some questions, and then I'll bring us back. The whole process will take about 10 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes. And it'll be an abridged version of what you can do if you are doing this alone or in the space of your house. Now, before I do this, I want to acknowledge that it's the middle of the day. And people are listening to this from work. They're listening to this maybe in their cars in many, many different ways. So this isn't necessarily the ideal time to be doing a practice like this. And at the same time, for those of you who are able to join me, I do encourage you to join me in trying this. And for those of you who are listening to it while doing other things, that's perfectly fine as well. And you might choose to come back to this recording. We also have a recording that from a practice that I did on Saturday with some of the people who are here on this call that I can share back with all of you if you choose to actually have a guided reflection later on, and perhaps in the evening or at another time. Okay, so with that, go ahead and close your eyes. Place your hands in your lap in such a way that your hands are touching each other, either one cupped in the other, or the two of them together in some form. Let's begin by taking a few deep breaths. Noticing where you feel breath's presence the strongest. You might notice it in the rise and fall of your shoulders. Or perhaps the breath as it exits on your upper lip. With each breath, see if you can draw your awareness more deeply into your body. Relaxing any tension on your forehead, your jaw. Settling the muscles along your back. Maybe shifting the weight so that you feel balanced in your seat. Now notice your hands and the tips of your fingers and any tingling or sensations that you might feel at the tips of your fingers. For this practice, I'm choosing the breath or the hands as your anchor. This is where you can return to feel grounded in your body. Now take a moment to scan your year. This might look like the seasons of the year or the months starting in January of last year. Notice what moments or activities arise. And hold this question in your mind as you scan your year. What am I wanting to be acknowledged for? You might find that your mind is racing with thoughts. So just allow what arises to arise. Might start with the winter season going into spring. Who were you being at that time? What was showing up for you? Now drawing that into summer and fall, is there anything that you can let go of? Or do you see the harvest, the abundance? Notice how it feels in your body to be reflecting on the year. See if you see any tightening or loosening. And this practice can feel a little uncomfortable. It's in this discomfort that we recognize and we can visualize who we're being. Now go back to your breath for a moment. And today's practice is an abridged version of a longer practice, so center back on your hands or your breath. I'm going to ask you one more time, what am I wanting to be acknowledged for? What are you wanting to be acknowledged for? What can you let go of? How do you want to show up for others and yourself? And with that, just take a few more deep breaths. Just releasing any of your energy and the thoughts again. I invite you to come back to our meeting space, come back to this call when you're ready. And recognizing that this is an abridged version of something that I invite you all to try with more intention, with more space, perhaps when it's not in the middle of the day. So what I've given you is a handout that looks something like this, but is actually vertical, where you can type into these boxes. And I invite you to do that however you find to be helpful for you. The other thing that I'd like to invite all of you to do is to join me on Thursday, December 28th. I'm going to be doing an intention setting contemplation where we'll be bringing our journals and actually writing this through in an hour-long session. So not something that I'm running through in 5 minutes in order to fill the space, but something that we can do with a little bit more time. And then there are a few different offerings here that we have. It's a meditation, there's an online course. All of these are open to anyone. They're all free and available to your friends, to your family. It's not just for those of us in animal well-being space. So really anyone is welcome to join. So that is all for me for today. Thank you all for trying this out with me. It's new to do this, I know, and to do this in a group like this can be a little bit daunting, and yet I'm really glad that folks are here and that you've stayed through to the end of the presentation. Thank you. If anyone has anything to share, by the way, I mean, again, it's interesting to do this as a group, but please share in the chat as well.
Well, Jyothi, thank you so much. People were entering in the chat saying thank you. Today was the perfect day for it, and it provides a fantastic opportunity to go through the month practicing and to set those intentions for the upcoming year. So please, everyone, feel free to share in the chat. You can also follow up and share some of your senses, some of the value that you gained through the reflection on the pet forum for Maddie's. And please also feel free to join Jyothi on December 28th. And you can also partake in the Maddie's University course with the journey you own as well, just to help you move forward in the same sense. So again, thank you so much. And for everyone, we're going to look to wrap up today in the presentation today. And we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Continue to take time to contemplate and put yourself right in the same moment. Take advantage of everything we've done. And we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Bye-bye, everyone.
All right, it was a fantastic response from everyone that I was able to see in the chat. I was glad to have that moment to myself as well. It's midday, but I think that's the perfect way to break up the day.
Oh my gosh, yes, I agree. I think we can train our bodies too to kind of adjust to breaking up the day with something like this.
I agree. I recommend pausing at any moment, and in between, I love setting calls to 50 minutes so that you do have 10 minutes where you can just close your eyes, reset, ground yourself. And again, that physical presence with your hands or your breath is such a wonderful way to again bring yourselves back. And yeah, what better time than the middle of the day? But I also recognize that it can be very challenging when you have your colleagues or you're in the midst of doing other things. Yeah.
Yes.
More people to recruit to do it.
Yeah. I was thinking about saying meta reflection, and I completely forgot Robin until the very last moment. But Robin works with me, and she had this framing of it as a meta reflection. So now that'll show up in the recording, which I think is kind of interesting because we're not only reflecting, but we're doing a reflection on how to reflect. Right? Like, what is the act or art of reflecting, which is a really cool concept when you think about it. And very philosophical on the one hand, but also it's something we do all the time, right? We're constantly, in our jobs thinking about our past and the goals, and then thinking into the future. So, yeah. Well, I should let everybody else go too. Are we all supposed to hang up now too? I don't know how this usually works for the speakers.
Yeah, I was just waiting for us to make sure we had wrapped up all of our thoughts and conversation, and I will end the meeting now. Thank you all.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.